Why are so many people overwhelmed with clutter? Disorganization is causing shame, suffering, friendships, time, money. People just like you wondering where and how to create an organized lifestyle. This podcast offers expert tips and solutions for your clutter obstacles. My name is Rachel Seavey, and this is the Organized Podcast.
Welcome to the Organized Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Seavey, and I am here with the lovely Varian Pierce. Now, Varian has so many different hats and is very well known in this community. He has worked at the Mental Health Association for over 12 years in San Francisco. And he's also got lived experience with clutter and with hoarding disorder. So he's a peer and highly respected, and I'm excited to learn some things from him. Another thing, several groups you facilitate here. You facilitate the drop-in support group, a group for LGBT seniors 55 and over who hoard. You facilitate a men's group and buried in treasure classes. So you've just a plethora of knowledge, and I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Okay. I'm happy to be here. This is great. Thanks, Rachel.
Oh, no, absolutely. So tell me, what do you do at the Mental Health Association there in San Francisco?
Well, I'm a peer counselor. So peer in the mental health world, peer means that I have my own lived experience of mental health challenges. I have quite a few on my list. Hoarding, my job specifically is to help people with hoarding disorder. We call it hoarding behavior. So I use my own recovery, what I've learned through my own recovery and through helping others recover, to continue that process. Just help show people that recovery happens. And I'm seeing the light at the end of the clutter tunnel myself. It takes as long as it takes. It's an individual journey. Nobody can tell you how fast you should go or how to do it, but we can't do it alone. That's the primary thing. So that's why it's so amazing to be part of this support system for people with hoarding disorder, because it's such an isolating behavior that we've brought people out of isolation into a community where we can talk about it and reduce the stigma, eliminate the shame around it, and actually recover our homes and our lives.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's important for people to have peer support. It's sometimes it's a little overwhelming, I'm sure, to call a professional organizer or to confess or confide into a therapist and not know where anything's going to go. And with the peer support, it's gentle. People have been there before. You understand it's a process. I'm sure you feel less judged. Now, I know, I believe is it all of the United States? Is it who can join some of these groups? Um,
Because of our funding restrictions, some of our services are only open to San Francisco residents, such as our Buried in Treasures class or one-on-one support. Those are San Francisco specific, but our support groups are open to anyone in California, any
okay.
California resident. And again, that's because the state funds some of our programs, the city of San Francisco funds some. So, but our conferences are open to the world.
Mhm.
We do have events where they're open to everyone. So it's really a global community that we've been part of creating. My team was the first in the world that we know of to offer peer support specifically for hoarding,
Mm.
and so we're pioneers in this.
And what a lucky community, because there's a lot of places that don't have this kind of support and understanding. So it's super cool that anyone in California can join, a Zoom or talk to people or meet people. And then you're sharing this with the world with my podcast. I know that I have listeners all over the place that I talk to. So your information is going to reach lots of people.
Right.
What I'm most excited about picking your brain about is one time we were talking and you showed me this like infographic, and thank you for sending it to me. I'll share it in just a moment now. And it was like the stages of people in their readiness. I know that's not what it was called, but I really gravitated towards it because I work with people that are all in all of the different stages, and it's good for people to know, just you could not be ready or you could be gung ho, and there's places in between. So I'm going to pull up, I'm going to share my screen here and just ask you if you could just kind of pick this apart, the cycle of change.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love this because anything that can break it down, make it more understandable to the logical mind, because a mental illness is not logical. It's not rational. You can't reason it away. So it's good to break it down and just normalize it. It's like, okay, this is anytime a human being wants to change a habit, we go through these stages of change and start at the top in pre-contemplation. That's called the denial or the resistance stage. No intention of changing behavior, no real awareness that the behavior exists or that it's problematic. A person in pre-contemplation will evade, avoid, deflect, get defensive, get angry, run away, attack, whatever, anything to avoid looking at the behavior and the problems it's causing. And that's true for, addiction, hoarding, anything. So at some point, a lot of people come out of pre-contemplation into contemplation where they become aware that there's a problem, but there's no commitment yet to action. That's called the ambivalence or the yes, but stage. Yes, I'd like to do something about my clutter, but it's so overwhelming. Yes, I'd like to have people over, but I really like my stuff. So it's two opposing ideas held in tension. So people can spend years in contemplation. So one thing about our groups is I acknowledge people for no one who comes to our groups is in pre-contemplation unless they're court ordered. That doesn't happen very often. Most of the people are looking to change or at least dipping their toes into the recovery waters. And then after contemplation, a person can move into preparation, or I prefer determination. It's like, okay, I'm ready to do something about this. What can I do? So we start looking around for resources, support, start learning about hoarding disorder. What is this thing? They might sign up for a buried in treasures class, and they start preparing. And it's usually like in the near future, within the next 6 months, they want to do something to start changing. And then the action stage is active modification of behavior. So with hoarding, there's both compulsive, impulsive acquiring, and there's the difficulty letting go of things, kind of need to hold on to things. So with the action stage, it's hard because we have with decluttering, we have to do something we really don't want to do. But with acquiring, we have to not do something we really want to do. So it's it's kind of the angel and devil kind of be fighting, tugging a tug of war through our ears with a little rope. I just had that image. Um, so anyway, so with action, it could be reducing acquiring or eliminating acquiring, not bringing new stuff in because that is how it comes in. We have to stop the inflow. And then it's also actively decluttering, or I like to call it home improvements.
Yeah,
Because decluttering sounds like a chore that I want to avoid, but home improvement, well, of course I want to improve my home.
I love
Uh,
that.
so then after action stage, there comes the maintenance, and that can be partial, like sustained change, new behavior replaces the old. So if I ever manage to get my desktop decluttered and keep it uncluttered, then I'm in maintenance around my desktop. The rest of the place could be a chaotic mess, but I'm in maintenance around my desktop. So that can be partial or total. Some people are living life after clutter, and they're in the maintenance stage all the time. Then relapse. Relapse is an inevitable part of the process. Uh, someone said the other day in one of the groups, you can't relapse if you haven't made progress. So don't feel bad about relapse. You may have a rough time and you acquire some things that you regret acquiring, or you're actively decluttering and then you hit a wall and you can't do it for a couple of weeks and you go, ugh. So So you fall back into the old patterns of behavior, but they're rarely as bad as the old behavior actually was. It's kind of like I always say it's like trying on an old pair of shoes to be reminded that they still hurt your feet.
Yeah.
So so and
Yeah.
then the spiral in the middle is the growth and learning that comes from traveling around this cycle. Every relapse we learn from it. So again, we've grown. We may feel like we're back at square one, but really we can't ever really go back to pre-contemplation once we're out of it. So all that knowledge, all that growth, all that progress you've made is still there. You just forgot about it temporarily, and
Yeah.
you'll get back to it.
Exactly. And it's a process. And so here's where I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. How can one get from pre-contemplation to contemplation?
That again is a very personal thing. The best way to change is voluntarily. um, but we do have people, we do work with people who are being forced to change through threat of eviction. They would be fine staying in pre-contemplation and denial, but they're being forced out of it. So pre-contemplation is hard because, like I said, they will do anything to avoid looking at the issue. So yeah, we actually won't we kind of assess people when they first come to us and see where they're at. And if they're in pre-contemplation, we leave it up to them. When you're ready, come to our groups, start, do something to show us that you're ready for change. But really trying in the old days of the team, we used to do endless visits to people in pre-contemplation, and there was no progress. It was really not a good use of our time. So we say, okay, we're here when you're ready. Um,
No, I understand. I do a lot of home visits where we have that discussion, and I say, I just don't think you're ready to have, even just one-on-one work together. And I usually give them, a therapy referral and now, your peer support group. But it's hard, like you're saying, with an eviction or, some sort of housing situation, getting that person organized. As a professional organizer, it's impossible. And so our solution, unfortunately, is usually a storage unit, because I know as a professional that this person isn't ready to make those hard decisions. And it would take a really long time and be really expensive to go through all of their belongings in a short amount of time to reach a deadline. So that's definitely not ideal, but I work with people in pre-contemplation a lot. And I love that you said you can never go back there. So that's just, I mean, it's obvious, but it was just beautiful. Um, Another thing that I loved is action, because I think people think, and don't get me wrong, we do a great job, that if professional organizers come to their home and help them, that's it. That's it. It's over. The clutter is gone, and then it isn't. It's like the people themselves have to take the action and modify their behavior for it to really work. Otherwise, it comes back immediately. And I don't think people understand that. I know that people want it done quickly. And, can you have a team come, and we can, and it'll look beautiful, but you haven't taken that step to, change your behavior. So then as, the very next day packages are coming in. They
yeah.
haven't, yeah.
Well, there's hoarding is like an iceberg. The clutter and the collecting and saving behaviors, those are the 10% that are visible above the surface. That's what people can point to and judge us. It's what becomes problematic. But then the other 90% is going on under the surface, the internal work that could be other mental health issues going on. They know that there's a genetic factor in this that they're still studying, but it does run in families. There's brain wiring. They studied our brains and we process information differently. So, doing even when my clutterers, like well, the people who come to our groups, our participants, when they're not a lot of them come feeling guilty that they're not in the action stage. And I say it's okay. If you're in contemplation, be the best contemplator you can be. You have to go through the process. Recovery is a process, not an event. So really just give I it's hard to see the inner work. It's like because it's under the surface and we don't other people don't see it. They don't see how complex this is and what we're struggling with. But we I try to remind people to give themselves credit for the inner work. Even if the outer work's not happening, give themselves credit for the inner work. But if they haven't done the inner work and they have a clean out, then it comes right back because they haven't processed. They still have the need for the stuff. We have attachment to individual specific objects, but then we need the clutter itself, and that can be anything. People will just bring anything in just to have that protection, that protective wall. It's like building a fort of pillows as a kid, and you feel like you're safe in there, hiding from the world. So, yeah. So if you take away someone's protection, they're going to freak out. People have ended their lives after a clean out. So we want to
Yeah.
avoid that.
You really do. It can be detrimental. And, every now and then I get calls where people say, my parents are on vacation. Can we just, clear them out? And it's like, no, we can't. That's against the law. I don't think people understand. Also, that's not really a full solution. And I don't want to turn work away, but I do share with people, which is kind of your next step, like you're going to need maintenance because this is it's a whole life change for you, and you're not going to remember where things go. You'll have us come back and we can keep working on this. It's not like a one-time event because especially with hoarding, people will backslide. Like you said, they absolutely will. And then we're able to help them with the maintenance, just kind of, okay, let's start fresh, let's put things away. So it's important to know that you will backslide and that's normal. I think people backslide and that's it, they quit. Um, there's a lot of shame. People are really embarrassed to call me for a second time or, especially after, even if we've done a really big detailed project, that's when they're even more embarrassed. There's like, oh my gosh, I spent so much time at my house last year and now it's even worse. But I hear that all the time and I tell people this is really normal. Like, I wish you would have called me 6 months ago and we could have, just done a couple hourly sessions together to get this at bay. It's super common, especially people that are 50 and older. I mean, we're all stuck in our ways. And so learning new behaviors, learning to throw out trash, learning to not buy every single color of that one blouse you love on QVC, it's like you have to constantly learn and you make mistakes and you go, damn it, I bought way too much. And then you start again. But I love this chart. I think this is great. Um, what do you think people are biggest fear is about changing their cluttering behaviors?
I think, because I've done 12 years of support groups and one-on-one, I think really it's fear of change, fear of who am I without this clutter? Because a lot of us take our identity from our clutter. One woman she was the person who had everything. If anybody needed anything, she had it and she knew where it was in her clutter and she could give it to them. So that was her role in the community, and her identity. And she actually said, without my stuff, I would die, because she had no sense of herself other than performing that function for others. Like, who am I? What do I want? It wasn't, she was so out of touch with her own needs that, you know, she had taken on this role, but we're more than a role. We're more than an identity. There's we're complex organisms. So I think it's just really fear of who am I without this. I feel like, it's kind of like a cocoon. I see my clutter as this cocoon that I've been gestating in, and now I'm starting to emerge, and it is scary. It's like, who am I? Who am I going to be in the world if I don't? The clutter has been has occupied so much real estate in my mind for so long that if I don't have that as my excuse to not live my life, then I'll have to live my life. And what's that going to be like?
Right. Scary.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that.
sure.
I also think people worry about failure. Do you think people, are concerned about trying and then not being able to do it, and so they don't try at all?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, failure, I have all these clever things about failure, but I'm trying to think of some of them. But yeah, I mean, when we were learning to walk, we fell down a lot. And hopefully our parents didn't shame us for not not being able to walk right away. But we all learned how to walk, so we can do this too. It's okay that we're learning things at whatever age we're at, learning new things. So that means we're growing and learning, and we are able to change no matter how old we are.
Yeah, and
And
it's okay if you do fail. You can always try again.
yeah, well, I mean, it's every failure is a learning experience. If you look at
Absolutely.
failure, it's okay. I tried, I that didn't work. Let me try something else. If the temptation can be just to give up, but like, okay, well, what will work? Let's try different things. I encourage experimentation, and it's really important to learn to realize that we can't do this alone. We can't do this on our own, and that's okay. We don't have to do it on our own. That's what's great about it. But yeah, asking for help can be a real challenge for a lot of people. Like, oh, I should be able to do this on my own. A lot of shoulds and
Mhm.
but we can't. It's an actual mental health disorder, and the biggest realization I had when I started my recovery process is this isn't my fault. It,
Right.
it's an actual mental health diagnosable condition, and I didn't know I had it. So I did the best I could, not knowing what was working against me. And a house full of stuff is a natural consequence of undiagnosed hoarding disorder.
Yeah.
So there's no need there doesn't need to be any shame in that. A lot of what other people told us, and people go, "Ooh, how could you live that way?" It's like, well, I haven't had a choice, but I'm gaining choice through my recovery process.
Exactly. And I catch a lot of shit, and people go, "Oh, you let," I had a colleague work on a job once, and she says, "You let people keep whatever they want." And I thought that was crazy. I don't even ever want her back on a job. But I think people just truly don't understand how hard it is, and that people have to make the decisions on their own. There's nothing that I want to I can coach and encourage and cheer you on and physically help you. A lot of us physically will help you take stuff in and out. But when it comes to actually what you're going to keep and what you're not going to keep, that is all on you. And if you end up keeping 99% of this stuff, it's not on me. And I think a lot of people are like, well, you should have, pushed them harder. And I'm like, a lot of the people are, I can notice, in the contemplation stage, or they're just not ready for a push. And people that are ready for a push will flat out tell me, I want you to tell me what to keep. And people do that. And I will, absolutely. I have people that say, I don't care what you do, just make it look better. And then I tell them where their stuff lives, And I mean, there's so many different ways, but ultimately and specifically with people who struggle with hoarding, it's they've got to make the decision, they've got to make that growth. And if they choose to keep stuff, it's like it's not the final. They can next week, next month, next year review the item again and say, hey, maybe I don't want this thing,
Yeah.
but it's I don't ever want to make people feel pressured to make a decision that they think I want them to make. And there's a lot of, organizers out there that have these very specific rules, like Ohio, only handle it once, which drives me nuts. I mean, I can handle the same object 10 times when I'm working with people sometimes. I mean, it just
Yeah.
happens. And that's how you can talk about. Sometimes you have to hold the thing. Sometimes I have to hold the thing. Sometimes it goes to donate and they're like, no, I can't do it.
Mhm.
So then it comes back. I mean, it's a process, and having these really strict rules, I think, is kind of a scary way for people um to feel about organizing. So Uh, I think having a safe home is probably the most important factor of all.
Yeah. Yeah, we often say just safety first. If you have stuff stacked on your stove, that's probably a good place to focus. Um, if your if the exits from your home are blocked, that's a good place to focus. Anything that might endanger your life and safety um, is a good place to focus because we often we just universally have trouble narrowing it down. Like, where do I start? I get overwhelmed. Think about all the just everything I own is an unmade decision, either to keep it, to let it go, where to put it, where's it going to live, um, how many can I allow myself to have, things like that. So we tend to people with hoarding disorder fear making decisions because we perfectionism is a big part of this, ironically. And it's like, well, what if I make the wrong decision and I need it later, or um, I can't find it, whatever. And so it's really, really, it's important to respect the hoarder's autonomy. I'm uncomfortable with the word hoarder, so I'm just, um, but it's important to respect our autonomy
Yeah.
because there is a process around some objects. Some objects it's harder to let go of, and we don't have to let go of everything. That's what a lot of people the anxiety says. Oh, I'm going to have to let go of all my stuff. It's like, no, nobody ever said you have to let go of all of your stuff. Everyone needs stuff, and it's okay to have memorabilia, but how much is a healthy I guess, collecting is a spectrum from minimalism on one end and hoarding on the other end. And there's a sweet spot of balance somewhere in the middle there that I'm still working toward finding. But nobody
Exactly.
can, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, nobody has to get rid of everything. And in fact, I always tell my clients, I know you're a maximalist. This is never going to be bare. It won't be stark, but let's unpack this stuff, get it on the wall or unpack it and organize it in such a way so you can, because people love their stuff and it's scary to think that you're just going to be in this like minimalistic thing all of a sudden, and that never happens. A lot of the times we'll do these like art walls for people where we've got like 35 things that they had on in an Amazon box on the wall, or and I love unboxing things and putting them away. It doesn't always have to be, keep or donate. It can always be like, oh, this is cool. Let's find a cool spot to put it.
Yeah.
And letting people just be themselves. Like, we know you love color. We know you love purple. Like we'll hone in on what people love, and we're like, we know you love this, so look at this,
Yeah.
and making it fun, because it isn't fun to organize. So you have
Yeah.
to make it as fun as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
Yeah.
have snacks,
Oh,
have
yes.
music, whatever it takes to make it enjoyable. And have someone I really like working with you. We get along well
Hmm.
and we have fun. So, and you help me find some real treasures that I'm absolutely going to keep. Some of them require a project in order to realize my dream with them, but at least I know where they are now, and I know they're safe. And when I'm ready, if I'm ready, if I'm never ready, I may choose at some point to let go of those things.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times we hold on to things out of guilt. Oh, I didn't follow through with that. I have to hold on to it thinking that I'm going to follow through with it, but it's really just guilt. So we need to forgive ourselves for lacking the follow through to realize the plans we had for this object or these things. So
And that's really hard for people. I'm glad that you pointed that out, because, people have really good intentions, and then they just maybe they don't even want to do it anymore. And so having that flexibility to say, I don't think I'm going to actually follow through on this
yeah,
project. Let me just
yeah.
donate it.
I
Um,
call it calling my bluff. Like,
yeah,
okay,
yes,
yeah.
exactly. Like, look, I really haven't, and it must be kind of a relief to not have that on your to-do list anymore. It's like, okay, good. Now I don't have to, hem all my pants.
Yeah, absolutely. Because things that were appropriate to my 20 something self may not be appropriate for my 60 something self. I'm 61 now. So I'm like, I haven't done that. And it doesn't even fit me anymore, whatever it is. So out with the old, in with the new is my 2025 motto. And not all the old stuff. A lot of the old stuff is really great. But I'm really, it's like, buried in treasures. I do have a lot of treasures but I have a lot of stuff that's not treasures. Like when we went through my cupboards, and the oldest thing we found was a can of cherry pie filling from 1995. Oh, okay, I don't need that anymore. So, um, so yeah, it's really just okay. You're getting realistic about what is worth keeping, and it's not just about what I'm getting rid of. It's really deciding what to keep, what is valuable enough to me, that kind of setting standards. I was working with a guy once, and he hoarded luggage and backpacks and briefcases and all kinds of suitcases and things, and he pulled some out and he was showing them to me, and he said these aren't even my good ones. And I thought, well, right there, so there's a standard, like, okay, you have good ones and not good ones. So maybe you could consider letting go of the ones that fall into the not good ones category.
Yeah.
So it's really listening to how people talk about their stuff, and motivational interviewing is a great tool to, asking open-ended questions about the things, rather than yes or no, saying, okay, how would it feel if you let go of this object, rather than you want to keep this or not.
Yeah.
So it really about coaxing out, because everyone has their answers inside them, but so how do we coax them into finding their own way.
Yeah. I love that. And what other kinds of things are you guys doing over there at the Mental Health Association in regards to clutter?
Well, we have support groups. We have a buried in treasures class going on right now. I'll show you my book. Buried in Treasures.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, it's a book. It's cognitive behavioral therapy for hoarding disorder, and it's 16 classes over 20 weeks, and it begins like, okay, what is hoarding disorder? What encompasses it? What are the unhelpful beliefs? What are the emotions? What are the cognitive processes that got us into this mess? And then kind of unraveling all that, and then learning new skills in order to deal with our stuff, to reduce acquiring or eliminate it entirely. I distinguish between shopping and acquiring. Everyone has to shop.
Mhm.
That's normal. So it's important not to stigmatize ourselves for shopping. It's when acquiring is when it crosses over into the disorder takes over, and we end up getting things that we regret later. So usually to soothe ourselves from an uncomfortable emotion. So yeah, so we have support groups. In certain cases, we have limited. We're a small organization with a small team, so we can't give everyone one-on-one support. But so we've prioritized people who are in crisis or under threat of eviction for one-on-one support. Um, and then we also do presentations. We educate people, both professionals and uh, the general population, about what hoarding disorder is, and we reduce stigma. That's part of our mission at MHA, is to raise awareness and reduce stigma of all mental health conditions, but especially hoarding disorder. Because again, it's no one's fault. I didn't pick my brain, but this is the one I got, and this is how do I work with it as it is, not like someone else thinks my brain should work. How do I work with my actual brain
And
to create? Yeah,
yeah, there's a definite stigma. And so getting around that and explaining to people um that it's a mental health issue and it has nothing to do with their morals or their personality, that's really helpful for people even
yeah,
when they're struggling.
yeah. Having a mental illness doesn't make someone less of a person. They still
No.
have, dignity and intelligence and emotions and insights, talents. Yeah, everything is still there. It's just something big has gotten in the way. So it's kind of shifting the focus away from the disorderedness to a more functional, and that's what the recovery process is. It's, the medical model is like, oh, you have this, here's a pill, let's just suppress the symptoms. You'll always be this way. But the recovery model is like, no, I want to live a fabulous life. What can I do to get to that place? Recovery is possible. So, and
Yeah.
probable if you keep going on the path. I call it the path. I call it the road of recovery, because road two implies that recovery is out there somewhere in the distant future. Maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't. But every step we take is on the road of recovery.
Yeah. That's going to be our next podcast together and making notes, is because you are very careful in the words that you use. And I think being intentional with the words that we use with ourselves is really important. I liked how you said you didn't like using the word hoarding, shopping versus acquiring, and then the road of versus road to. Because a lot of the ways that we talk to ourselves or just frame things, if we frame them differently, it could really be more of a positive experience internally than just beating yourself up.
Yeah. Well, I said I was comfortable with the word hoarding. Not everyone is, so I'm
Mhm.
careful about what I use it. But I'm personally, I don't like to soft pedal, things. George Carlin did a whole routine on soft language, and so for me, it is hoarding. But why am I hoarding? It's not like I'm greedy and people hoard money, but we call them success. Uh, yeah, but why? What's underneath the urge to gather all this stuff around me and hide from the world? So I'm comfortable with that word, but some people prefer other words.
Definitely. Yeah, I know a lot of my colleagues are offended by that word and probably offended that I use it. For me, it's more I know it sounds silly, but more like search engine stuff. It's because most people will type that in to Google if they're looking for a podcast, you
Yeah,
know. And so it's just kind of helpful for me. But I understand that. And then not feeling bad for shopping. That's really good because we all shop. I shop.
yeah, you can't
No.
avoid it.
Oh, and people go, "You go to Costco?" Yeah, I mean, it's a good value. Where do you think I shop? I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
encouraging anything bad. I shop.
yeah, yeah,
I really do. And I mean, I don't buy a lot of stuff, but I have to buy groceries and clothes sometimes.
yeah, yeah. And marketing is all about getting us to buy more stuff. Like all the little things they have by the checkouts is like, oh, last minute impulse, like, oh, I need some gum and I need some new earbuds and all these little things that they purposely put next to the checkout thing so that, okay, I did my shopping and now here's all these little things that I could buy too.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, and we all fall into it,
Mm.
myself included. Um, well, is there anything you want to share before we end?
Just as well, I think the thing I love it when people come to, I'm usually the first person they meet at MHA. It's over Zoom, but still, I'm I get to welcome people through the drop-in support group and the other groups I do. And I just really like, people come in very, very anxious and shameful or filled with shame or guilt or whatever, not sure what they're going to find. And I love to see the light turn on in their eyes and their faces smile when they realize, oh, okay, it's okay. And I like to give them hope. I like, okay, hope. I define hope as being open to the possibility that things can change for the better. So I like to be the hope giver. I offer hope, and if they take it, that's great. So really, just there is hope.
Yeah. Well, I will be putting links to all the different groups and to the Mental Health Association. I'd love to have you back on because we have so many different things that we
Oh
could
yeah,
talk about.
yeah,
And you're so open about the emotional end of it. And I think that's so hard for people, to sit with their shame and sit with their, disappointment. And you've just been really open. So thank you for being so gracious because, I love helping people and I know you do too. So I think together we can come up with some good stuff. And
Absolutely. I'm excited.
you too. Well, have a great night and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Rachel. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Hoardganize podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed and join our Hoardganize podcast Facebook page and get additional tips and challenges.